Great. Welcome, everyone. I am excited to talk with a very smart person, author, speaker, attorney. I'm really interested in the personal development side and how you kind of conquered that. And as a success architect, uh, Amber Fuhrman is going to school us today.
I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know about that.
yeah. What I usually like to do is to kickstart the conversation with this question that will more than likely lead into everything else. So the question is, if you were to look back in the last 6 to 12 months and you
Mm.
were to turn that time frame into a Netflix special,
Oh,
what would that be? What would be your title? What would the series be about? What would the special be about?
um, the answer might surprise you. So it's interesting that you said 6 to 12 months because it's been a rough year. So I'm just going to be completely vulnerable. Like,
Mhm.
I know that
Mhm.
most people want to come in here and be like, man, it has been the best year ever because that's what I'm here for is to share my expertise. But man, I'm human and it has been a year. So I would say that the title of my Netflix special would be um Down but never out.
Wow. Down but never out. And that would be the past year. Now,
Yeah.
would the time prior to the past year have anything to do with the what transpired recently, or is it completely different?
It's completely different, and I'm more than happy to share. So, I was on a very steady upward trajectory. I had closed my law firm. I'd walked
Yep.
away
Yep.
from a career that didn't fulfill me. The personal development and coaching business was going fantastic. And then, almost exactly a year ago, I was at an event and somebody started shooting at the event, and I got to experience what PTSD felt like for the first time.
Oh,
And what was really interesting for me was it was over in seconds. And I remember coming back from that event, which is a place I should have felt safe. Coming back from that event, and I had a speaking engagement 2 days later, and I was shaking so bad that water, like I couldn't hold a cup of water. And
no
I
way.
remember messaging my coach going, I don't understand. Like, I don't get afraid speaking in front of people. I mean, for the last 15 years, I've done jury trials. I've been defending really less than desirable choices of people. I've been on stages with 3, 4, 500 people. Like, a room of 15 entrepreneurs shouldn't bother me.
Yeah.
And she said, welcome to PTSD. And it's been a year of regulating my nervous system and then re-engaging in my business.
Wow. And boy, that must have been tough. I mean, obviously, probably still is.
Yeah, we're getting over it. It's there was a lot to it that some is my story to share, some isn't. So that's why I'm hesitating a little bit. It was there was a combination of the dynamics of the actual fear combined with the dynamics of family, combined with the dynamics of like forgiveness. And I will say the parts that's mine to share is it was so much more than just sitting behind a rock with bullets ricocheting and hoping that we're good to go, right? I remember getting in my car and driving home, and I had a 9 hour drive home at the end of this weekend. Um, and that's when it hit me. That's when the adrenaline hit. So I was calling people that I know have been in similar situations saying, "Hey, like I need to know how I'm supposed to feel right now. Like I don't know how to feel." Um And on that drive, it hit me that I've called victims overreactive for the last 15 years. I've thought about the people I've defended over the last 15 years. And I remember talking to a friend of mine saying, if I had to walk into a courtroom right now and defend a client, I don't think I could do it. Like, I had zero desire to defend somebody's poor choices. And I thought back to, victims of domestic violence or shooting or things like that, where they weren't physically harmed. And I didn't understand. I didn't understand why they were so vindictive. At least that's what I would call them, overreactive and vindictive. Like, you should just be okay walking away. Yet
Mhm.
I still have zero desire to look at or talk to the person that created this scenario. So it's just been regulating my emotional system, regulating my nervous system, re-engaging in my business because for about 6 months I was a non present business owner, dealing with the identity crisis that comes along with having your values. I mean, I've always been able to find the good in people. That's what made
Yeah.
me such a good defense attorney. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't. So it's just been a year of completely rebuilding who I am.
The identity piece is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, the identity piece was the hardest part. I work with a lot of people who have long-term PTSD diagnoses, people from the military, and I understand it intellectually. And I
Yeah.
always thought that because I understood PTSD intellectually, that I understood it emotionally. But I've never been in a fear-based situation like that before. I've never. And so when I talked to my business coach, who is a combat veteran, she says, now imagine 4 to 8 years of that on a daily basis.
Oh,
And then they walk into your training room. She says, and I know that this isn't what you want to hear right now. She says, but this experience is going to make you a better coach and a better trainer because of the way that you will be able to empathize with people on another level. And she says,
yeah.
I know you're not ready to hear that yet, but someday you will be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what's the first thing you do? Now that you've got a little bit of the experience of going through it, like if you were to meet someone that was in a similar situation, obviously it's hard for them to express themselves, but you
Yeah.
you would notice something, you'd pick up on something. What's the first thing anyone can do to make that person feel safe?
Yeah, so I think that the very, very first thing we get to acknowledge, and this goes for everything, right? There's another situation in my head coming from grief and loss. Like,
Yes.
we want to try to relate to the person. So we're like, I know exactly how you feel. And anybody who's ever been in a grief or loss situation or ever been in like a emotional dysregulation of like a PTSD situation, when someone says, I know exactly how you feel, you're like, how the hell do you know how I feel? You
Mm,
lose credibility instantly. And so,
mm,
one of the things that is interesting about human behavior is we want to feel comfortable. So, when we're with somebody who's not okay, we want to make them okay so that we can feel comfortable. And
mm,
sometimes the strongest thing we can do is say, this is a place where you can just sit and not be okay. Like, I know you're not okay. And I know that there's nothing that I'm going to be able to say that's going to make you okay right now. So I just want you to know this is a place where you can come and not be okay.
wow. Wow, that's empowering, but also discouraging at the same time, you know,
Well,
is
I mean, I think the key to all success is sitting in the discomfort, right? We get to sit in the discomfort of growth. If we're making sales calls, we get to sit in the discomfort of the sales calls. If we're entering a new relationship and we've never been in a healthy relationship, or maybe we just left a relationship and we're putting ourselves out in the dating world again, we get to sit in the discomfort of that. If we're building a team, we get to sit in the discomfort of letting go of control. This is no different. Like, we just get to sit in our own discomfort and allow that person to tell us what they need. And I can go scientifically into the ways I know that I can help this person, right? Because I know that I have training that will process the trauma that this person's going through in a way that can get them out on the other side. But I can't force them to do it. If they're not ready, then my training's worthless.
yeah.
So I have to find a way to sit in the discomfort so that they feel like they're not alone, so that when they are ready, my training can be useful.
So it's knowing that there's someone there is probably the biggest thing. That someone
Yeah.
that's not going to try to teach them or talk or obviously not judge them, but do all this other stuff, but just there. Sounds
Yeah, and I'll share this story with you from years ago when I first started my coaching business. I think when we find a new industry, and I don't know where your listeners are on in their journey, so they'll be able to take something from this no matter where they're at. Um, when we start a new venture, there's this period where we want everybody to know what we know, right? Like we see people and we're like, I can help you. Let me help you. And we almost chase them, right? And when I first started this journey, I understood how powerful the words that we say are. And so I would encourage people to avoid using negative words to describe their circumstances. And I have a friend of mine who is a combat veteran in the military, and he had lost some members in a platoon that he was leading, and he was going through some really severe negative thoughts and PTSD and suicidal ideations and all of that. And he called himself broken. And the
mm,
human in me should have sat there and said, interesting, what about your situation makes you use that word? The inexperienced coach in me said, you shouldn't describe yourself as broken because nobody's broken. You immediately want to get them to shift that word. And years after this conversation, we stayed friends. And years after this conversation, he says, we are so lucky that we were on Zoom. He says, because I have never wanted to jump through a computer screen and yell at somebody so much. He's like, because you might tell me that I shouldn't feel broken. You might tell me that I shouldn't say the word broken, that it's not beneficial, but that's how I fucking feel is broken. And so sometimes we know that the way somebody's describing their situation isn't beneficial for them. We know that the way somebody's showing up isn't beneficial for them. And we know that we can help them through it. But sometimes what they need is somebody just to validate that the way they feel is the way that they feel. Not that it's okay and not that it's beneficial, and I'm not going to validate their excuses,
mm.
but I can't tell them how to feel. I can't tell them that what they're feeling is inappropriate. It's how they feel. And then we get to move on from that. So there's a question I'll ask people all the time when they approach me. And I'll say, before we go into whatever it is you're going to tell me, what are you coming to me for? Are you coming to me for a friend, a solution, or do you just need somebody to listen? Like, do you
Mm.
want somebody to bitch with? Do you want somebody to give you a hug? Or do you just need a sounding board? And then that's how I show up. If they say, I just need a sounding board, then I get to curb every impulse I have to try to solve their problem.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough.
It is because we want to
Yeah.
fix it. And
Yeah.
here's what's so funny is I hear people say all the time, men want to fix things. Women want to fix things too. It is a human thing, right? So I always hear people say, men do this, women do this. No, it's humans do this.
Yeah.
And it may be that that's what we've stereotyped them to be, but we are problem solvers by nature. And we get to remember that our clients, our friends, our associates, our colleagues, our employees, they're not problems to be solved. They are human
Yeah.
beings.
Yeah. 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 Wow, that's so good. So for that proactive person that's always trying, you know, yeah, how would you encourage them to, okay, pump your brakes, you're moving too fast, slow down, just like how would you it again, it's a tough mental switch, emotional
It
switch too.
is.
We mean well, right? The intention is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so they're not going to like it. So remember, you love me when I tell you this. You don't know me, but I promise you love me. Um, Intention is incredibly important, and not necessarily the intention that we deliver things with, but maybe the intention that we don't deliver things with. So, what I mean by that is when I am in a conversation with somebody, And and this takes a lot of awareness. It takes a lot of practice. So be patient with yourself. When I'm in a conversation with somebody and I feel the urge to say something, I will ask myself, what is the purpose of this statement? What is the purpose of me saying this? Is it to make me feel better? Or is it to solve a problem for them? Is the purpose of me saying what I'm about to say to show how much I know and validate myself with their response, or is it to actually benefit them in some way? And we'll find often that if we ask that question, oftentimes what we have to add to a conversation is more self-serving than it is actually beneficial for the conversation. And we get to then step back and say, okay, maybe I don't need to make this statement right now. Maybe what I need to do is sit back. How else could I show up in a way that would serve the intention that this person has just told me that they needed? Because if and I'll tell you exactly where this has come into play the most for me is I recently started dating again, and I have a history of abandonment, and I have a history of pushing people away. You know, my story involves a ton of grief and a ton of loss, and I have in the past had a hard time building any type of relationship, personal, professional, or romantic, because I've never let myself rely on anyone because people leave. I went to 10 funerals between the age of 10, or before the age of 18, I'm sorry. Went to 10 funerals before the age of 18. People just always leave. That's how my brain was formed. So, as I've started dating again, I will find myself constantly needing validation that the other person is still there. So
Hmm.
when I go to reach out to them, I have to ask myself, what's the purpose of contacting this person right now? Is it because I actually have something to say to them? Or is it because I need them to respond and tell me that they haven't disappeared? And if the answer is I need them to respond so that I know that they haven't disappeared, then that's a text message I probably shouldn't be sending and a call I probably shouldn't be making, because that's all about me. And that means that I get to sit in the discomfort and acknowledge that, like, they can't fix me. I get to acknowledge that I get to sit in this for a little bit. The same thing goes for communication when we're trying to support others.
Okay, that's interesting. I appreciate you sharing that. Um, I don't think this is
And I
pushback,
know this
but
conversation has probably gone a completely different aspect than you thought,
oh,
but
no, 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 no. This is perfect. Yeah, it's flowing, and that's what we do. Would you think that if you send that text message, it could be part of the process in your healing journey,
yeah.
as long as you're
Yeah,
aware
and
of it?
I've done that. I've done that before, where I think it's just about being honest and being aware of where we're
Yep.
at, right? Um, it depends on where I'm at in the conversation and where I'm at in the relationship. If we're in a talking stage and there's no expectation of commitment or problem solving at this point, like, that person gets to decide how much of making me comfortable they are willing to take on, right? So what I mean by that is, like, sometimes I've sent the message where I've said, "Hey, I'm really feeling disconnected and vulnerable today, and I kind of just need to know that you haven't left yet." And I'll say that instead of just sending the message that's like, "Hey, good morning,"
Yeah.
when what I don't mean is good morning. What I actually mean is, please tell me that you haven't left, right?
Right. Right.
So, if I think that true growth comes when we stop trying to hide our insecurities through behavior that society has told us is okay.
That's so good. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Pushback.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love pushback.
Yeah, yeah. So insecurities uh can be synonymous with being vulnerable.
Hmm.
And being vulnerable in reality could also equate to rejection,
Yeah.
right? And then it's just a cyclical kind of thing. Uh it sounds like you're challenging people to, if it does happen that when you're vulnerable, you get rejected, you got to live with it, sit in the discomfort of it, and work through.
Um, yeah, I mean, so one of my favorite phrases, and I talk about this in my book, is that their actions are all about them, and your response to their actions is all about you. So their actions are all about them, and your emotional response is all about you. So we can disagree with somebody's actions. We can be disappointed in the rejection. That's human behavior. When we feel so distracted by the rejection that, like, part of my story is suffering from panic attacks, and like there was a period of rejection where I was quite literally hyperventilating in a hotel room for 4 days and couldn't function.
Wow.
Like, that's not normal. And I didn't know it wasn't normal, right? Because I had put the responsibility on everybody else around me to make me feel okay, right? The people that I was dating, I had put the responsibility on them to make sure that I knew they weren't going to leave. The people that I was working with, I had put the responsibility on them to make sure that my needs were met. My family, this is why my relationship with my mom was so hard, was I needed her to reassure me of things she couldn't reassure me of.
Mm.
So I have the responsibility to figure out why I'm hyperventilating in a hotel room for 4 days, where, like, it's normal to be disappointed by rejection. It's normal to have feelings, to be sad. There's a warranted response to those emotions and an unwarranted response to those emotions. And what we get to do is figure out which side we fall on. I do a lot of emotion work with people, and they always say, "Does this mean I'm not going to be sad anymore?" And I'm like, "No, you're not a damn robot. Like, you're still going to be sad. I can't take away your emotions. It just
Uh,
means that the next time that somebody cuts you off in traffic, you might not think about running them off the road, right? Like, that anger that is um unwarranted, right? Like, somebody lies to you, they steal from you, um they betray you in some way. Anger is warranted. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, anger maybe not warranted. So we get to figure out what's warranted and what's not. And then I think what um, we get to do, and this is what I would love everybody to take from this conversation, and it's not easy. So I want you guys to know this is a lifelong journey. There's never an end point where we're like, I've got this figured out, which is why I laughed when you said I had conquered personal development, because I don't think we ever conquer it, right? Um, we get to acknowledge that it's not anybody else's responsibility to ease our pain, is the best way I can put it. The
wow.
people that we love, the people that we've chosen to be in relationships with, they may choose to act in a way that they know makes us feel comfortable. That is their choice. It's not our expectation that they act that way, right?
Mm.
So we get to, when somebody says to me, my husband, when he does this, it really makes me feel unloved. My first response to them will be like, how can somebody else make you choose to feel a certain way? Because your feelings are choices. So, what that tells me is that you are tying a definition to their actions that may not actually be the definition that applies. And instead of having a conversation about those definitions, you're just choosing to internalize it and expect them to change their behavior so that you don't have to feel a certain way. Um, Now the beauty, and I don't want this to seem like I'm saying people should just be assholes all day and you shouldn't care about it. The beauty of friendships and relationships is when you find that person that, when you say, "This is my insecurity, it's not your job to fix," they say, "I know, but I want it to be." Right? Like, I know that I can't fix it. I'm willing to do whatever I can do to ease it as much as possible. And that's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah. Even though they can't do anything, or it's not right. Their
Yeah.
thing too, right? It's because we can only change ourselves per se. I like the
Yeah.
statement, feelings are choices,
Feelings are choices.
emotions are choices. That's deep. That's
It
deep.
is.
Yeah. You have the natural response.
My my coach has a phrase that she shared with me when I first started working with her that I steal, and it's choice is a powerful thing and suffering is always optional. So if you are suffering, it
Wow.
is because you are choosing to.
Grief?
Grief?
No.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, grief.
Yeah.
Grief is
What about it?
different from suffering.
Yeah,
Suffering is self-inflicted. Self-inflicted grief.
grief is self-inflicted as well, in the way of how we experience it, right? Because I think you can have a grief that is riddled with sadness, loss, and suffering,
Yeah.
or you can have a grief that is supported with joy and gratitude and acceptance. And the way that you choose to approach grief will dictate whether you suffer from it or not.
Suffers more that negative connotation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It
Okay.
doesn't mean you don't feel.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just means, there was an interview with, I think it was Stephen Colbert, and he said, the things that I'm most grateful for are the things that caused me the most pain. Because you can't be only grateful for the happiness. You can't be only grateful for the good things. If you're going to be grateful for the good things, you also have to be grateful for the things that didn't work out the way that you thought they would, that paved the way for the good things to happen.
Yeah. That's deep. That's definitely a sign of, I guess, emotional maturity, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a phrase I saw, a quote I saw the other day that said, I prayed for flowers, so I can't be upset that the rain came first.
Mm. Mm. Wow. Yeah, that's a t-shirt.
Yeah, isn't it though?
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a t-shirt. So what are you doing now? Like, what's your main thing?
Yeah, so coaching, speaking. I work in the field of NLP, neuro linguistics programming. So, for those of you who don't know what that is, if you break down that word, neuro is your mind. How are your values formed, your beliefs? Everybody has a different model of the world, different morals, values, expectations that are formed based upon how we were raised. Were we raised in a religious environment or a non-religious environment? What was our relationship like with communication? That starts to form the way we see the world. And then the linguistics, what words do we use? People tell me a lot about who they are based on the words that they use and how they describe their experiences. And then the programming part of that, which is if that model of the world or the words that you use aren't creating the success that you want to have, how do we reprogram it? How do we adjust your relationship to experiences so that you can see the world differently? It's a science that was formed by two therapists who were tired of talk therapy not
Mm.
working and creating results. And I hesitate when I say that because I don't want to mislead anybody to think talk therapy isn't important, because I think it is. I also think that there's just multiple toolboxes or tools that go in a toolbox to create results. So I use NLP in coaching in a business setting. I don't do a lot of personal work, although some people come to me for personal stuff. For the most part, it's why am I not following through on sales calls? How can I make more money? How can I start a business? And it's what was your relationship like with sales, communication, and leadership as a kid? Were you told money was okay? Were you told open communication was okay? How do we shift those things to create the life that you want to have? The book, speaking, podcasting, traveling, just enjoying life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where are you in Vegas?
I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's not too far. I got a ton of family out there. Um, how do people end up finding you that end up working with you?
So there's a few different ways. In-person networking, I do a ton of in-person networking here. I also do a lot of speaking engagements nationally and internationally. So depending on where I'm speaking, and this is great for the people that are listening that are business owners, depending on what environment you're in is going to depend on how you show up, right? In
Mhm.
Vegas, I show up very heavily for my in-person trainings and coaching. When I'm traveling, I'm not going to show up heavily as an in-person trainer because they might travel to Vegas, but that's not the majority of them. So then I show up heavily for my online programs and online options. So it's just a lot of getting word of mouth out there and being in people's faces as much as possible.
Yeah. Is there anything specifically that you're working on that you're super excited about? Either it's you launched,
Yeah. So we published Break Your Bullshit Box 2 years ago, August of 2023.
it's also
And
right. That's also your
what's
pod.
that?
That's also your podcast.
It is. That's also the name of the podcast. So the book was published 2 years ago. I'm working on recording the audiobook. I wanted to make some changes to the book itself. We rushed the publishing a little bit because my dad's accident that he passed away from was August 23rd of 2001. And it was really important to me that this book get published on August 23rd. So if I didn't do it in 2023, it wouldn't have happened till 2024. So we're making some changes and doing a second edition of the book. And then I'm going to record the audiobook. Once that is wrapped up, the next project I'm going to work on is based on this little girl sitting next to me. She's asleep. Jasmine, say hello. I have a 5-year-old German Shepherd. And for the 5 years that I have, they say dogs take on the personality of their owners. And she is a total spicy, all like, and I'm like, what does that say about me? But it kind of fits. Um, Watching her grow up, I have more than ever thought, what would our life be like if we approached life, business, and relationships from the viewpoint of a dog? So I have a project that we're getting ready to
Wow.
announce. So I guess I'm going to announce it now, called Life Lessons, What My German Shepherd Taught Me About Play, Purpose, and Perspective. It's a book, it's a calendar, it's a workbook, and it is 5 years of watching her, you know, embrace the world with gratitude and fun and love and forgiveness. And yeah, so that's the next project that we're digging into.
That's really interesting and different.
I'm
Yeah.
excited for it. I'm trying to find out now, and I don't know whether I can do this or not. So I'm working with a publisher to answer it for me. I'm trying to decide if a non-human thing can be a co-author of a book, right? Because
Oh,
I have I would love to list her as a co-author. I had her stamp or her paw made into a stamp. So in the book, each chapter is a dog command. So for example,
hmm.
my goal setting chapter is called Fetch. And what I've done is I've taken a call out box with her paw. And when I describe my perspective, then I give her a voice and I imagine what it's like for her, like going after goals and chasing a ball and like what must be going through her head. And then I share the experience from what I imagine her perspective to be. So it was a lot of fun to write.
Yeah, I can see this as a movie, you know.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I mean, I'm neurotic when it comes to my dog, and I think most dog owners, businesses. I tell my clients all the time, if you're in business and you want to increase your revenue, find a way to incorporate pets because people are
Ah,
neurotic about their pets.
right.
Like coffee shops that offer pup cups make more money than coffee shops that don't. Like it's just the way it goes. So I wanted to honor what she's been in my healing journey and kind of go from there. So that's kind of where it started.
Amen. That's amazing. Good for you.
Thanks.
Yeah, good
Thank
for you.
you.
So if people want to find out more about you and then hear, because Boy, this was an incredible conversation. The depth of insight that you were able to display and showcase is powerful. It's pretty powerful. So it's definitely
Thank
going
you.
to re-listen for me, yeah, a few times. So I appreciate it. If they want to find you, where do they find you?
The best place is to go to the website at successdevelopmentsolutions.com. You can also find me on all social media platforms at Amber Ray Furman, and I'll send you those links if you need them.
Nice, nice. I appreciate it. Is there one thing that you want to tell people to
Mm,
encourage the listeners that are struggling?
yeah, this was a heavy episode. So, what I will say is, wherever you are in your journey right now is exactly where you're supposed to be. That can't we can't get to where we want to be if we're not willing to accept where we are. And I share the example often of putting something in your GPS. So I live in Vegas. If I want to drive to New York and I've never driven to New York and I put it in and it tells me it's a 38-hour drive. And I say, man, I don't want to drive 38 hours. That's going to take too long. So I'm just going to tell my GPS I'm in Nebraska. And then it cuts it in half. Like the drive is shorter according to GPS, but I don't know how to get from Vegas to Nebraska. So I'm never going to make it there. And if I do, it'll be a complete accident. So we want to pretend that we're in a different position than we are because we're ashamed of where we're at, or we don't feel like we've made it as far as we should have in this point in our life. And that's the most harmful thing you can do for your success. So wherever you are in your journey is exactly where you're supposed to be. And acknowledging that and moving forward from that will allow you to get to where you want to go faster.
Boy, that's the episode right there. That's everything right there. Yeah, that's the clip that needs to, yeah, put some money behind it and push it out. That's really, really good. I appreciate you.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Thanks again. And everybody go click on the websites and all that stuff and share this episode with people.
Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure.
Thanks.